with writing, I know comes influence. People seem to read, feel passionate about your pieces. So tell me, this is just a question. What is a piece that you wrote that you received that you feel like the most backlash, where people didn't so much agree with the way you felt, but you still had to let people know where you stood?
There are three pieces that I can think of, but the one that I'm gonna land on, and this is an old school joint, because I wrote it in 2017 for Feminist Frequency when they were taking contributor pitches for a very brief window, when they were still like a media company. Now I think they do just a lot of like community fundraising and organizing. But I wrote about Breath of the Wild. I think that game is very average, right? I think it's just like a kind of like a very middling kind of game. I don't need that shit really. But what I wrote for the piece, the essay itself was criticizing the narrative of Breath of the Wild and the design philosophy of The Legend of Zelda, insofar as it's Nintendo's fault that Zelda is a damsel in distress, when in Breath of the Wild they make her out to be this badass who's been warding Ganon off for a whole 100 ass years while Link has been slumbering, getting his beauty sleep or whatever, and Zelda's busting her ass trying to protect everyone, but then, because it's Link, I guess, and because it's The Legend of Zelda or whatever, Zelda's got to be cordoned off in the way that she always is. And so my criticism was, how is it that after all this time, we now get this like real confirmation of, oh yeah, Zelda, she's boss shit. She like really means shit. Look at her in Smash. Like she whoops ass.
Mm.
And to still get the same narrative of, oh well, Link is the savior. Link is the one that has to do it. It can't be Zelda to rescue herself. The gamers were pissed. The gamers were saying I'm a soy boy, that I'm a, ultra feminist, that I don't know what I'm talking about, that that's the whole point of the series, that Zelda, like, they're in this like perpetual eternal struggle. Do you not know what the Triforce is? And I'm just thinking, like, the point of criticism is for entertainment to get better, not
Yeah.
for it to stay the same or to adhere to the stringent rules that it places on itself. This is fucking video games. Like, it can do whatever it wants.
So let me say, do you think a lot of that mostly came from people who just said, "Hey, it's a good game," just overlooking the story, the whole concept? And do you think a lot of that was just fanboyism, or do you think they
Absolutely.
had any points?
I think that there are always some points that I'm willing to look at, right? I especially agree with the premise that, well, this is the designer's point of view. This is the story that they want to tell of these three pivotal figures who are in this perpetual struggle with each other, and that's just always what happens, is this vicious cycle. And maybe that's also the philosophical underpinning, right? The idea of a vicious cycle. So okay, I can understand that, and that's all fine and good. But even with that, my expectation, or at least my hope, is for designers, for artists, for creatives to reimagine, reinvigorate these stories, um, tell them in a new light. It's fine if it's still Legend of Zelda, but like, make it about Zelda. It's called The Legend of Zelda. Make it like, give me a game about Zelda.
No, I'm
Give
with
me a
you.
game about Zelda saving Link. That would be tight.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Let me ask, so to further elaborate on that, do you think that writing in video games now currently has reached like a stalemate? Do you think we got a few good ones in, or are we reaching a point where we're really needing to take a step back and really get into the stories of some games. Because I do see some games with great backgrounds, great stories leading into them. But we got a lot of games where people are screaming, hey, it's just pretty much a shooter. It's another action game. It's another this. What do you think of writing now in games right now?
I think it really depends on where you're looking in games. Because if you're looking at the very prestige companies, if you're looking at like a Naughty Dog, of course you're going to have high level writing there. Now, I did not like Last of Us Part 2. I have not made it through. That game is too fucking gruesome. I can't do it. I feel like Neil Druckmann and co. maybe went too hard on the brutality of at the and the depravity of human nature when we as black people have experienced that for 400 plus years. I don't need to see any more deprived nature. I don't need that when there are cops kneeling on my brothers and sisters' necks for minutes at a time. So
Mm,
so you get really impactful storytelling in prestige games, of course. And then of course when you go to the indie side, you look at something like Celeste. I haven't played Death's Door, but I imagine that not the necessary physical wording of that game, but the environmental storytelling, the words behind the images. Um, Ignore the dogs, please,
Mama,
if
you
you can hear them.
barely hear it.
uh, uh, I feel like there's a lot of good storytelling in indies as well. So, the writing is good. I think the problem is gamers aren't paying attention to it. Either that or
Mm,
the writing is getting obscured by um the fanboyism, by the by gamer love, by auteurism, by because a story like I'm not going to sit here and criticize Death Stranding because I haven't played it, but just looking at the gameplay itself, that's a boring ass fucking game. I don't want to play that. And that is supposed to be what, like 30, 40 hours long or something? But there's supposed to be some good story to it, but the gameplay, that's where I think we get lost is the dissonance between storytelling and gameplay. And so sometimes, you get good storytelling, but you don't always get a good game to play in order to make that story worthwhile and vice versa.